Welcome at this time. I'm guessing I don't see anybody, so we'll just move on to number 2. Consider recommending the ACHRA Board of Trustees hold a public hearing on September 26th to receive comments.
Commissioner?
I'm sorry.
I think we need to be on the HRA special meeting,
We gotta do that first?
yeah, which is not management, it's the whole HRA.
Ah, okay. Okay, I wasn't sure which one was gonna need to be first. All right,
We open with a public hearing.
okay. So we're on the actual special board agenda. Called meeting to order. Trustees are all here. I have no chair's remarks. We'll go to the public hearing. This is to offer the public an opportunity to comment on the proposed use of old and new CDBG funds totaling $704,668 to the city of Fridley for the use in developing a public park to serve as a multimodal transit hub at 6101 University Avenue. Do we go right to the county attorney?
All right, thank you. At this time, I will open the public hearing portion of the meeting. The time is 10:48 a.m. I would ask that the minutes reflect that the notice of this public hearing was published on August 4th, 2023 in the Anoka County Union Herald to inform the public that a hearing would occur during the September 12th HRA board meeting to allow public comment on the proposed use of old and new CDBG funds totaling $704,668 by the city of Fridley for use in development of a transit hub at 6101 University Avenue as set forth in the notice. Before we receive any public comments, Renee Sandy, this Community Development Manager, will address the board with an overview of the proposal.
Good morning. Again, Renee Sandy, Community Development Manager. Basically, the city of Fridley has requested CDBG funds. This was an old gas station site that had been cleaned up by the city. It's been sitting vacant. The parklet is what they're calling it. That'll be used as a multimodal transit hub serving low moderate income persons. It does meet all of our CDBG funding requirements.
All right, thank you. We will now begin the public comment portion of the hearing. Did we receive any comments submitted prior to the hearing?
No written or oral comments were received.
All right, thank you. If there are any members of the public who wish to provide comments, now is your opportunity. Please take turns coming up to the podium and state your name and the agency or program that you represent before addressing the Board of Trustees. Are there any members of the public who would like to address the board? Seeing nobody coming forward, I will ask again, are there any members of the public who would like to address the board? And final call, anybody who would like to address the board? Hearing no further comments, or any at all, I will close the public hearing portion of the meeting and turn the meeting back to the board chairman. Thank you.
Thank you. So does this require a roll call vote? I'm assuming it does, but I'm not sure on all the CDBGs. Nope, okay. But we do need to make a motion and move it along, no? Okay. So we just received the information and that's it. Gotcha. Easy enough. Anybody have any questions or comments? This seems like a good use of dollars in that area, which is very busy off University Avenue, and I know that there's some big plans from the state of Minnesota on expansion and other work on University Avenue possibly, so that might be a good way to, this might be helpful. Yes?
Yeah, I'm sorry, Mr. Chair, just like one technical question, because I want to say the language or the law that was changed to, so we're able to do like in full regions, kind of this pre-vetting or qualification for low to mod for certain projects. Do I have that right?
Trustee Meisner, the city of Fridley qualifies as an LMA, a low moderate income area, and because the city of Fridley has this, we don't have to do the extensive surveying for the folks to income qualify for that. So yes.
And that's relatively new, I'm saying, that change.
We've always had that opportunity to do that. We actually went through with the last census, and several cities now qualify. Census data is usually behind as low moderate income areas, and the city of Fridley was able to take advantage of this funding due to that.
Yeah, thank you.
Trustee Look.
Mr. Chair, thank you. Yeah, can we just run through the funding here? I'm specifically wondering if this is part of an account that they have, that they're using those dollars, or is this countywide dollars, or?
Let me ask a clarifying question. Are we on item number 5, or the public hearing portion is over, so now we've moved to number 5. And so you're asking specifically, these are remaining CDBG funds that we have allocated from previous years
that we're using for this project.
Okay, I understand.
All right. So under number 5, then, do we need a motion there? Gotcha. Okay. So is there any other questions, any other clarification anybody needs? Otherwise, anybody want to make a motion on item number 5, which is the allocation of old and new CDBG funds?
So moved.
Okay. Do I have a second?
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. Any further discussion? Is this a roll call vote? Thank you.
Trustee Brasted?
Aye.
Trustee Reiner?
Aye.
Trustee Schulte?
Aye.
Trustee Look?
Aye.
Trustee Gamache?
Aye.
Trustee Jepson?
Aye.
Trustee Meisner?
Aye.
And it passes unanimously. Item number 6 is to consider authorizing the ACHRA Chair and Executive Director to enter into negotiations and a purchase agreement for an apartment building located in the southern portion of Anoka County. Karen.
Mr. Chair, this is an exciting project. About a year and a half ago, we received through the Home Investment Partnership Program a special allocation of ARPA dollars. The requirement is these dollars must be used to provide permanent services or permanent housing for persons who have formerly been homeless. I've gone through a process where I've worked with our local continuum of care providers, the Heading Home Anoka groups. We've done extensive outreach to the community. And the one thing we heard over and over and over again is that there is an incredible need for family housing, 2, 3-bedroom, even a 4-bedroom if we can work that in. So I have been working every avenue possible to locate potential projects. I was approached by an organization that had decommissioned a property, and after looking at it, walking through it with our facilities team and all of the master contracts that we have, everyone felt this has very good bones. And if we are able to use the home ARPA dollars and the $2 million in ARPA dollars that the county has set aside for this project, that will allow us to do acquisition and exterior improvements, and then we can look to our regular home dollars and potentially some of the new funds coming from the state of Minnesota, again, to address housing issues. But of course, the first step is to have the ability to negotiate a purchase agreement. I believe we have a willing partner. We just need to have authorization to allow us to start negotiating.
Okay. Questions from the trustees on this plan? Trustee Look.
Yeah, Mr. Chair, is this typically something that ACAP gets involved in?
Mr. Chair, trustee, many years ago, ACAP would have potentially been interested in something like this. The dollars, however, came to our Home Investment Partnership Program, and we need to work with a nonprofit provider who can provide all the scope of services. So that's the second phase. We had to secure a property, and now, once we've done that, we'll issue an RFP for a service provider. ACAP is more than willing to take a look at it. They may be someone selected, or we may go with another nonprofit provider. But we want to make sure that we open it up to as many different nonprofits as possible.
Any other questions? Oh, I'm sorry, Trustee Brasted.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Karen, how big of an apartment building is this, and how many people do we anticipate being able to house there?
Mr. Chair, trustee, currently the building is vacant. It was originally constructed with 50 units, but it was more of a board and lodge type facility. There were no kitchens in any of the units, so we'll have to do significant rehab on the interior. And then to create the larger family-sized apartments, I would expect we'll reduce the number down to somewhere around 20 units.
Trustee Schulte.
Mr. Chair, the concerns I have here are the tails. It's not the purchase price we see can be covered with federal dollars, but that's always the easy part. Well, I shouldn't say it's easy. That's one of the easier parts. The long-term tails of maintaining another county HRA-owned building. We're already struggling with what we're doing with the 4 that we have and positioning ourselves for the future. And those buildings are all needing roofs and heating units and all that stuff that goes along with it. Operations of the building, we know could be run by a nonprofit, whether it's ACAP or another third-party nonprofit. Again, we're bringing somebody else into the partnership, which it's a good thing. I understand that. My bigger concern is the long-term fiscal tails that come with this. And that would fall either on the county or the county HRA. So I'm hesitant here. I'm not thrilled with this right now.
Trustee Look, and then Trustee Reiner.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Yeah, this is precisely why I brought up the question about ACAP. There's the service operating side of things, and there's the ownership side of things. And the request before us, as it appears, is that we'd be the owner. And I've had a long, I think, consistent position on, the challenges with owning facilities, aging facilities, facilities that need continual updating. I know that even to have our staff go out and look at this, they're taxed with everything that they're currently doing. And I'm not sure that I'm necessarily supportive of ownership. That's why I'm asking, is there another nonprofit we could possibly, if these dollars can only be spent in this capacity and there's no other competing projects out there that have been asking for these dollars, okay, and if you can't spend them, they go away. If that's the scenario, can we find a nonprofit that we can gift these dollars to? They buy it, they own it, they can select operations or operate themselves or do whatever the case is. Good luck and see you later. Is that a possibility?
Mr. Chair, trustee, that is exactly the model we intended to follow. We will make this building, it's grant money, so we're not using any county tax dollars for this project. We will hopefully purchase, renovate, do the RFP, and part of the RFP will be not just the operations, but also ownership. And we will then transfer ownership, in all likelihood, for $1 to a new owner, which takes us out of the equation.
Trustee Reiner.
No, I had some questions about this, but I think that this last discussion's answered them.
Okay. And I know we've had this, oh, I'm sorry.
Oh, no, thank you, Mr. Chair. Well, no, and I appreciate the discussion. I mean, you and I have had conversations in the past, so all of these are valid points, and then hopefully what Karen said then makes you less hesitant, I guess is my question, because this is an opportunity to help communities that really need it. And so, again, to me, this is a win-win situation to address the concerns, then also try to do something good.
Trustee Schulte.
Mr. Chair, thank you. I guess the clarification that the idea is to sell it is great, but I would like to have those conversations started before we commit to buying it. I would like to find out if there's a good chance, a more than 50% chance that someone's going to buy this from us when we're done. Because owning the property is kind of a non-starter for me. So if I vote to support this negotiation here and we end up owning it for 20 years, it's counterproductive to my thought process. So I'm leaning towards giving Karen and the chair to negotiate here, but with the idea that I may just vote against this when it comes to fruition if we don't have a buyer lined up.
Trustee Meisner.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And then just to go back to about, essentially we would be gifting this. We're not going to sell it for cost or a profit. That is not the intention. So I just wanted to make sure that I understood that is correct as well.
Mr. Chair, trustee, that is correct. Our goal is to have the ability to enter into negotiations with the property owner, bring the final purchase agreement back to this board for final approval. And then once that happens, we will start working on the RFP. This is a model that's been used across the country with these funds and has been very successful. We are not in a position to be able to manage this particular type of a building. So there is no interest in my department to take this into our portfolio. We would want to transfer ownership to a nonprofit that can truly provide the right services and operate it as it should be.
Trustee Reiner.
Is there an owner identified or possible owners identified or a pool of people that are in this business that you would go to then to solicit?
Mr. Chair, trustee, yes, there are some people who have already approached me, and there are a significant number of others that would be able to take this type of a project on, especially if we are looking at transferring it for a nominal cost of $1.
Karen, would it be helpful to the entire HRA to have some discussions with those people, even if it was maybe just the management committee talking to them? Would they be willing to do that, just to help us see some support for that and that they would be there? I can understand the concerns that some of the trustees have, so I kind of want to see if there's a way that we could alleviate some of that by saying, we're having these conversations and they've come to us and we've talked with them a little bit and asked some questions. Is that a possibility to set that up?
Mr. Chair, trustees, I would defer to our attorney. If we're issuing an RFP, we don't want to have specific conversations with a provider. I think we could, in general, set up a meeting to talk to several providers on a very general basis about this type of activity, but I think we'd want to be very careful about not getting into specifics.
I like that. I can understand that. So then my question would be, would it be possible that we could just ask for letters of interest that might come, just, it doesn't necessarily have to be that they're going to specify any details or anything, but just to say that, just for the board to be able to say, okay, we see there's some interest and we can move forward on this first step. Would that be a possibility? That doesn't, legalese, I mean, we're just not talking about getting into having them right in front of us and talking and answering questions and asking questions, just to see if that's at all a possibility.
Thank you. I can certainly look into it. I'm not sure I'm prepared to say exactly right now what the limitations on that are. I mean, I think we might be able to come to some sort of an arrangement as long as it's broadly broadcast out to the public so that they can come in as like a public meeting sort of situation where they could get information about the project and express some interest. We might be able to arrange something like that. But there is a concern, I agree, that within the public contracting laws, I don't think we can sort of solicit out specific providers to come in and do presentations on this without having it be more, without appearing to cross over the line into favoritism or sort of negotiations that are not suitably public.
Gotcha. Trustee Meisner and then Trustee Jepson.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And yeah, and I'm just going to circle back to what you had said just previously. Again, you are doing your job in terms of setting the landscape for this. You have confidence that there are plenty of parties that will be not only interested but able to take this project over. And so I just want to stress that again. Again, I understand the concerns, but then if that is truly the case, I hate to lead out of fear when there's no real legitimate reason to be this fearful, if what I'm hearing from you is correct.
Mr. Chair, trustee, I am confident that we will have someone interested in ownership. I would stake my reputation on the fact that there will be multiple respondents that would be interested in this type of a property. It's not often that you can add a piece of property into your portfolio with only operation costs going forward. So I believe there'll be a lot of interest.
Trustee Jepson, then Trustee Look, then Trustee Reiner.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Yeah, so an RFP is not some whim that an organization puts out there just to see. I mean, it's a very in-depth questionnaire, budgets, I mean, showing significant proof that this company or agency wants it, they can afford it, and they're going to be around for a while. So I think even a letter of intent is an even earlier process that doesn't take a whole lot of commitment. But once you get to that RFP, that's where the commitment is. And I have to believe you're going to be evaluating those RFPs to make sure that this agency, whoever is selected, will stick around and has a reputation of quality management and services, if there are any, what have you. My question is, what length are you going to take the RFP to ensure that a lot of these concerns are answered, and And how are you going to evaluate those things? Or do commissioners evaluate RFPs, or just your department, or how does that work?
Mr. Chair, trustee, in this particular case, we would draft an RFP. I would bring the draft RFP to the HRA board, make sure we've got full buy-in on everyone, all the questions are being answered. It's very common for us to ask for, as you said, budgets, and we would probably set up a scoring system, making sure that we give priority to someone who has experience with this type of a property, someone who is connected to the community. But the criteria will ultimately be set and then reviewed and approved by the HRA board.
Trustee Look.
So, thank you, Mr. Chair. So we cannot grant these dollars to somebody to accomplish exactly what you're talking about. Is that true?
Mr. Chair, trustee, if we had a developer come forward who wanted to do this type of a project, we could. We haven't had a developer knocking on our door to do affordable housing for families in a long time.
Trustee Reiner.
So I guess I'd like to approach this from a little different angle, rather than not acting today, going through an RFP process and, adding months to, what's trying to get done here. Can't we just add some language into the action today that we would not be in ownership of this property within 12 months or whatever the right amount of time is? That would alleviate the concerns that I'm hearing from some trustees that, this is going to be something that we own for a long period of time and then cost us some dollars. Typically, you don't want to put yourself in a position of having to move a property within a sense of urgency, because that would hurt the sell price. But since the sell price is going to be $1 no matter what, it sounds like, that concern shouldn't be there either. So that if we put something into the action today that just makes a date certain that we're going to not own this property, that should alleviate all concern.
Trustee Schulte.
Mr. Chair, I'm prepared to support the action presented today simply based on Ms. Skepper's response that her reputation is based on this being sold right after it's done, and we won't be owning it for years to come. That's enough for me. I'll support the action.
Thank you, trustee. Quick question for you, Karen. It does say that the $2 million are available for the purchase and exterior improvements to the building, but we've talked about the interior improvements because of need for bathrooms and separation of the different things. What would be the plan going forward on handling that portion of this?
Mr. Chair, trustees, I would like to use the $2 million of county ARPA funds to make the acquisition. And then our next step will be to renovate and make sure the exterior of the building is in good condition or great condition. There is some roofing issues that should probably be addressed. There's some tuck pointing, some siding, window replacement. So I'd like to use the home ARPA dollars right off the bat, because those are the two with deadlines, and get those two projects started. In the meantime, we'll be working with an architect, going through the RFP process to find a construction company, and then come back and use either state dollars through the housing programs that have just been funded, and in combination with our home investment partnership program funds that we have to complete the renovations. And I'm looking at everything based on the shortest timeline, spending those dollars first.
Okay, thank you. Trustee Brasted.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Just so I have this right in my own mind, Karen, because I did, when I was reading through it, have a little bit of sticker shock, because I remember past conversations, we were talking like $2 million all in. Now we're looking at $4 million and then additional work, more than likely in the interior. So if and when it gets done and it's passed on to somebody else and we sell it for $1, do those tenants pay to live there? What does that relationship look like? And is that like a sliding scale based on income, or what does the final result look like?
Excellent question, one that I had not put into the notes yet because we don't have all the details yet. One of the components that we will factor into the operational costs is a rental subsidy program. The good news is there's nobody living there now, so we have no relocation benefits to pay. We want to make sure that we make any family successful. So HUD has asked all of us to make sure that there's a rental component, assistance component. But we can also set aside a certain percentage of the building as affordable without a subsidy to persons who may be at 80% of the area median rather than the very low income. So that is something we would work with as we do an RFP. One of the questions would likely be, knowing that some of the families will have an ongoing rental assistance program and will work with the Met Council to try to secure vouchers, how would you structure the rent structures for this property? We're looking, likelihood at about 20 units. Some could be at an affordable rate at 80%, some could be affordable at 50, some at 30, but we'd like to work with the provider to come up with that right balance.
Trustee Look, did you have a question?
I did, thank you. So we have 2 million in home ARPA dollars, and we are looking at allocating another 2 million in the regular ARPA dollars. And how much do we have in balance of that ARPA account? Do we know, Rhonda?
Mr. Chairman, or
Not to
Mr.
put you-
Chairman, Commissioners, Board of Trustee members, I will need to find out from Corey specifically. I know that he is trying to identify where some of the other projects are coming in, and he should have that for you within the next month. What was identified originally by the board was $2 million set aside for a transitional housing project way back when we first received the ARPA dollars. So those are the dollars that she is specifically talking about. Obviously, the board can determine whether or not that's something that you want to continue to do, but that was what was passed in the resolution originally.
Part of my concern, Mr. Chair, is kind of the genesis of this. We have funding sources from different bodies, you might say. And we're certainly discussing it right now in HRA, but we didn't have an opportunity to discuss it necessarily in, as a county board workshop or something like this, to even see if we're going to give this further consideration, okay? And so then we brought it here, we don't have all the answers necessarily for how it impacts the county side of things and what other projects we may have going on with those ARPA dollars. I know that's kind of been in discussion in terms of the budget and what do we use to try and balance the budget, yada, yada, yada. So I guess what I would respectfully ask is that these type of projects, while they're probably generated by a commissioner, that they would come and be vetted through a work session process to get consensus of the board at that point of, are we going to even bring this to the HRA to discuss it, given the fact that there's a combination, color of money, right? Color of money that's getting mixed up here to even be able to fund something like this. I don't know. I guess I would suggest we postpone it.
Trustee Jepson had a question.
Thank you. Karen, is there anything that is needing to go through the city? I don't even know where this is, the city where it's going to be located. Is there any zoning changes and updates that need to be made as a step?
Mr. Chair, trustees, I've had preliminary discussions with city staff because it has been operated as an apartment building and our end use would be an apartment building. It should not require any zoning changes. They would like us to come before the council, do a presentation on the project, but it should not require zoning changes.
And Trustee Meisner?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Yeah, I hope that we do not postpone this. And to Administrator Sivaraja's earlier comment, I mean, we did in the very beginning talk about allocation for this particular project. We had $69 million in total of ARPA funds. All counties could, decide like what are the priorities. We had such a small amount for this particular initiative, and the fact that you have cobbled together, in my opinion, creatively, a way to be able to do this. And it's 20 units. This is going to be so impactful for those families. And as you've said, because of your studying, like this is something that is not available in Anoka County. So I truly hope that we're not going to postpone it, that we will move this forward. Of course, we can continue to have conversations, but to stop it at this point with all this work, and we did in fact talk about it in the past, I am hoping that we move forward with this. That's just my comment. Thank you.
To address Trustee Look's question about how this got to the point we're at, if I'm not mistaken, you were approached initially about the building and the uses that the fact that they were decommissioning it, and that got brought to you, and you brought it to the HRA to have some discussion as to is this something, because of the fact that we had this $2.66 million available for exactly this type of thing. So it came to us from the community and this group, and that's how we got to where we are right now. And then you started to look at, okay, what other funds, what other work would need to be done on this building to get it to the point where it would be usable, because it's not now. It wouldn't work for that type of a facility. So do you want to add any more to that? That's appropriately how we got here.
Mr. Chair, the current provider, the owner of this property, was at one of several presentations that I made as I was doing community outreach. They did approach me. We've had a lot of conversations back and forth. In the interim, I have continued to look for additional properties and weighed which would be the best fit. This is truly the only opportunity where we can really create those larger units that are in such short demand across the entire metro, but particularly here. The key thing, I think, as a reminder, before we can get anywhere, we need authorization to just enter into the negotiations to create a purchase agreement. The purchase agreement will come back to this board for final approval. And at that point, that may be a point where you want to add some language in the motion to require a sale occur within 12 months of completion of construction. But today, what we're really looking for is the ability to start the negotiations.
Thank you. Trustee Schulte.
Yeah, just one response to Trustee Meisner and then one question for Karen. Just to correct one thing you said. You said the $2 million that we set aside as a board, as the Anoka County Board for transitional housing, you said it was for this specific project. That was incorrect. It could have been for 5 different projects. It could have been for 3 different projects. It wasn't specifically this project. So that's the only thing I wanted to correct. And I know it's rather immaterial. You were just simply telling Commissioner Look that we did discuss it at the board. Next, I would say the question I have for Karen is $2 million of Anoka County ARPA dollars, 2.066 of home ARPA dollars. That gets a purchase price exterior done to grade A conditions. Do we have an estimate, a ballpark, on what it's going to take to convert 50 one-bedroom, maybe 2-bedroom apartments into an array of 20 3- and 2- and 4-bedroom apartments?
Mr. Chair, Trustee, I did have Wold Architect come out and do the walkthrough with us. They did kind of a laundry list of things that they felt should be considered. They said this is a very high price point, but we wanted to give you the kind of that worst case scenario. Including the exterior renovations, it was coming in between $6 and $7 million. In talking to them since then, they say there is an awful lot that can be trimmed out. I am hoping to have the interior construction done somewhere around $3 to $4 million.
And Mr. Chair, can I follow up?
Sure.
As a follow-up then, and it's referenced here that regular home funds would be used to fund that cost.
Right.
Do we have those funds available?
Mr. Chair, Trustee, yes, we do.
Thank you.
Trustee Meisner, do you have a?
Well, I was going to say the regular home funds, I know that we're always looking to spend, projects to spend that, because that has our challenge in this county. It's not so much, we're always in demand with the services or the programming, and for the capital, it's like what can we fund? So, but I'm glad that you brought that up. Thank you.
So the question, I guess, now is, do we have confidence moving forward to authorize the chair of the executive director to begin the negotiations on the purchase agreement? Does anybody want to make that motion?
So moved.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Any other discussion before we vote? Trustee Schulte.
Mr. Chair, I'll just make sure everybody understands this is a $10 million investment of taxpayers' dollars into this project, which we will hand over then to a reputable third party to operate a homeless shelter, not a homeless shelter, an apartment building that is transitional housing for formerly homeless people. Did I characterize all that correctly?
Mr. Chair, trustee, we are using the word permanent housing. It's more than transitional. We will ask the operator to have services on site and be able to help these families be successful. It's not going to have a time frame associated with it, so it would be permanent housing.
You're not allowed to move.
And then just a reminder that this is going to be authorizing the negotiations in a purchase agreement. So it doesn't, when it has to come back here again before the purchase agreement is actually approved. Did you have a trustee? Okay, Trustee Schulte?
I have one last question, I'm sorry.
No.
Karen, if we don't spend this $10 million or thereabouts on this project, what else could we do with it in Anoka County? What would we do? Where would we build? Where would we go with these dollars?
Mr. Chair, the home ARPA dollars could be used for a rental assistance program. The existing home dollars that we have today are actually in jeopardy of being returned to HUD or to the consortium for use amongst other counties because we have not been able to have a development deal done since COVID. So we are really looking for a way to use these dollars. In all likelihood, within a year, we would be returning some of those dollars to our consortium.
Thank you.
Seeing no other comments or questions, roll call vote.
Trustee Reinert.
Aye.
Trustee Schulte.
Aye.
Trustee Look.
Aye.
Trustee Gamache.
Aye.
Trustee Jepson.
Aye.
Trustee Meisner.
Aye.
Trustee Breasted.
Aye.
And it passes unanimously. Thank you, Karen. The next item is then to consider recommending approval of the contingent amendment to the Stepping Stone Emergency Housing lease to allow renovations. Karen.
Mr. Chair, trustees, you'll remember at our last HRA management meeting, we had a discussion about Stepping Stone wanting to apply for a grant through the state of Minnesota. One of the requirements is that the lease contemplate any improvements being made. We know that there is still ongoing discussion over those improvements, but we need to be able to have something in our lease prior to the due date of the application, which is September 22nd, I believe, so they can go ahead and submit this. We are putting a recommendation in the action that this will come back to the board for, if they receive the grant, it will come back to the board for approval of the design and to answer all of those questions you had raised over whether equipment stays, whether it goes, whether it's built into the lease. Those are future questions, but we really, if we want to help Stepping Stone apply for this grant, we need to at least contemplate kitchen improvements in our lease agreement by amendment.
Questions? I think we get some clarification from the first time we had this discussion is that, and then it clarified it for me, should Stepping Stone, we approve this and then they go ahead and put this in and the kitchen's in, and then something happens, they find a different building or whatever, it would be the removal of the items from everything they did that would put a hole or holes into our building. If they just went out of business or left or whatever, and they left everything, the county gets it. And it's part of our, it's part of the agreement or however we do it. And that kind of, I thought that was kind of what we saw. I think Rhonda had put something into an email that kind of stated it that way, and I thought, okay, that makes sense. You don't want to have any damage done to your building that you have to repair. And I think just the fact that if they leave it the way it is after they've improved it, it's an improvement to our building. so I wouldn't have any issues with that. If I understand that wrong, let me know, but that's the way I read it when we talked about it.
Mr. Chair, this is a board decision, not a staffing decision, so that type of a question will come back to the board if Stepping Stone is successful in receiving the grant, when you execute the actual amendment that defines what the project is.
Okay,
This amendment will simply just identify that they are looking at upgrading the commercial kitchen.
So moved.
we got a motion, do I have a second?
Second.
It's been seconded by trustee Schulte, moved by trustee Look. Any other questions, comments? Trustee Jepson.
Yeah, I have a comment as well as a question regarding this item. So about a year ago in this meeting, my character and my reputation was called into question regarding a similar project. It was based on a meeting that some of my now colleagues had with some of the Stepping Stone board. And I don't know what was talked about. I don't know what questions were asked. I don't know how people interpreted answers. But there were some pretty erroneous things said about me. And you know, it's politics, right? Things are said, I can't control what people say, I can't control what people hear. And so I was like, okay, that's what we sign up for. Unfortunately, 2 weeks ago, the same message was alluded to in this meeting, and I just wanted to share with my colleagues now that I'm sitting in the seat and share with staff to remedy any sort of damage that people thought they were going to create against me. Because the comments were that the Stepping Stone board didn't know what I was doing. I went rogue. I went so fast in making these decisions. I was called a liar. My integrity was questioned. And so I did take the initiative to look through all of the board minutes and found specifically not just where I was directed that all my conversations regarding the second floor, regarding shelter capital funds had to go through the Stepping Stone board. It's in the minutes, unanimously approved. Stepping Stone board approved my application to the state for $2.3 million. The Stepping Stone board approved in these minutes that I could move forward with the construction and renovation of the second floor. So I just want you to know, again, I don't know who you talked to, I wasn't in the room, but can you please correct your thoughts right now? And I am more than happy to give you these minutes to show you that I wasn't lying. And I think I've done a pretty good job these 8.5 months collaborating with you, respecting this role, working through some strategies to make this county better. And I hope you know that. I hope you think that as well. My question about this project. In the lease, correct me if I'm wrong, the current lease that was given to Stepping Stone last year at the end of July included the payback sliding fee schedule. It's my understanding that that is still included in the lease, and unnecessarily so. So if we are going to add this to the lease, should we remove the payback portion? Because to my understanding, the boiler's been installed, the project came under budget, and the county hasn't paid anything for it. So I don't see why a payback schedule should be in a legal document, should be removed, especially if this is going to be added.
Trustee Look.
It should be removed anyways, as long as it's been satisfied or isn't necessary anymore. But it's unrelated to this.
Trustee Meisner.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'm sorry, so did Commissioner Jepson's question, was that addressed then? So it is being taken out? And then I do have a comment, my own comment, but,
I don't know
or
if,
just what Matt had said, that yes, it should be out of there, so do we need to?
I think we're gonna have to get some more information.
Mr. Chair, if we had a payback schedule, they didn't end up borrowing any money, there should be no payback schedule in the lease. That should be updated then. But that's different than this.
In this edition.
So it's not necessarily germane to item number 7.
And then okay.
I'll go, Rhonda?
Mr. Chairman, I am happy to follow up with Andrew and make sure that we have all the updated information so that when a revised lease comes back to this board, we can make sure all appropriate updates are made.
Trustee
I'm
Meisner.
sorry, I did actually have like an independent comment that this is first of all a moot point, because I do know that recently the Stepping Stone Board also agreed to this. But just to be transparent, between the last meeting that we had, the only confusion that I had is, like, we had a discussion about this, and there was debate, but I didn't believe that we had a vote. There was quote unquote no direction given, but yet we were giving direction to the Stepping Stone Board and their executive director. So I did have issue with that. I made my comments. Again, it really is a moot point because they've already moved forward and they have amended their own language. So I guess today, if it's just literally the language is that they are pursuing a grant so they can get a kitchen, I'm fine with that. But I did want to just vocalize then the confusion and issue that I had between the last meeting and then the direction that was given to Stepping Stone. But again, they've already changed it, so.
So we have a motion to get this part approved. Rhonda will look into working with Andrew to find out, to address the questions that Trustee Jepson had regarding the payback schedule and whether or not that is needed anymore or not. Is there anything else that we need to cover?
Mr. Chair, there
Oh,
is,
Karen, got it, went in the air.
the unanswered question is what happens if they are successful in getting the grant? They improve the kitchen, what happens to the improvements? That is that's the question I believe Commissioner Meisner is referencing. No decision has been made on that. What we're trying to do today is just make sure that the lease contemplates this improvement. If they get the grant, then they will be required to come back to the board with plans, which will be approved by this board. So that it moves that decision down the line. No decision has been made on how to proceed. All we're trying to do today is help them be able to apply for this grant.
Okay, Trustee Schulte.
Yes, I did want to comment to Trustee Jepson's remarks in that I'm not sure if they're all directed at me or not, but I will say I was in all of those meetings. I have no idea what happened at your Stepping Stone Board, other than what they told me. The Stepping Stone Board told me we had no idea that our executive director was approving that we would cover the cost of that heating unit. Because what happened at our workshop here, when you were here, and I was here, I believe Trustee Brasted was here, Administrator Sivaraja, and others, when we talked about the budget, your application for the $2.3 million at the state, and we said, well, yeah, but in order to occupy that space, we need a new heating unit, and it's going to cost this much. And you said at that meeting you were happy to make that happen, that your board would support that. Your board told me that never happened. We never heard a single word about an additional heating unit. We knew she was applying for the 2.3, but we had no idea about that. That's the only thing I said. I didn't say anything else. Never used the word liar, never, nothing like that. I just said your board had no idea you were authorizing that. That's all.
Trustee Jepson.
Yeah, it's in the minutes that it was mentioned. So maybe they didn't recall, or nobody asked me, and no one looked at the minute, no one, but it's in there.
Mr. Chair.
Alexis.
Trustee
Fair
Schulte.
enough. It's unfortunate that the board chair and another board member are unfamiliar with what actually happens in their meetings. That's unfortunate, but I guess that happens in nonprofits. They're not highly paid, overly educated people that really focus on that all day long.
Trustee Jepson.
Yeah, and it is very unfortunate because what unfortunately came out of it was an attack on me.
Yes.
We have a motion and it has been seconded. This is a roll call vote.
Trustee Schulte.
Aye.
Trustee Look.
Aye.
Trustee Gamache.
Aye.
Trustee Jepson.
Aye.
Trustee Meisner.
Aye.
Trustee Breasted.
Aye.
Trustee Reiner.
Aye.
Passes unanimously. So we are finished with this meeting, I do believe, and this is the full HRA board, and now we will move to conference room 772 for the management committee board. So this meeting is adjourned. Thank you.